Welcome to the sixth episode of The Next Door Engineers to Heroes. An engineering process industry goes through several stages of development. Starts from conceptualizing the idea, moves to front end engineering design, detail engineering, selection of consultants and contractors, installation and commissioning, to operation of plant and maintenance. Our next door engineers have been there, done that. Not just a single project, but dozens of them. Designing, developing calculations, mentoring, and learning are their everyday routine. Come, let's hear from the veterans, get the insights of the industry. This is the Next Door Engineers to Heroes. I am Rohit, founder and CEO of GoHype.com, India's only marketplace connecting freelance engineers with SMEs for gigs in non IT space. Welcome to you, Mr. Ankur and Vinay Kumar. Ankur Srivastav is a passionate chemical engineer. He is known across the global chemical engineering community for his yeoman service in sharing knowledge and mentoring young engineers. He has worked in India and Middle East for over 35 years in very well known companies such as Bechtel, Mott MacDonald, Pilfinger, Tebodin, and many other companies. He runs a blog titled Ankur's Chemical Engineering Blog on CHE Resources, an American website dedicated to the chemical engineering community. His blog posts have a viewership in excess of 2 million viewers. He is renowned for developing chemical engineering calculations using Microsoft Excel and has developed dozens of calculations related to oil and gas, petrochemicals, and other areas of engineering. He was invited as the chief guest by National Institute of Technology, Warangal, and has given lectures on chemical engineering topics in many engineering institutes. Currently, he functions as a freelance consultant, continuing to share knowledge and experience with young engineers across the globe. He believes in a saying, there is no better charity than sharing knowledge. Welcome once again, Ankur Srivastav, for our sixth episode of The Next Door Engineers to Heroes. With me today, I've got Vinay Kumar. Vinay Kumar is an IITian with bachelor and master's degree majored in chemical engineering. From working as an engineer in Baba Atomic Research Center, shifting gears in many private conglomerates like Birla, Inox Group, ITC, Volvo, Baxter, Mott Jacobs, Tebodin, Petrofac, and many others from 1980s till today. Vinay has come a long way in his professional journey, developing and contributing in projects from concept till commissioning across electrical, mechanical, and many other engineering categories. In the last 45 years, he has been on both sides of the table as a client and as a contractor or consultant, developing projects in fields such as nuclear power plant, chemical and distillery, paper plants, cogen and mini power plants, cyanide plants, leather tannery, instant tea plant, cement plants, Volvo truck plant, pharma plant, municipal solid waste plant, liquid oxygen plant, oil and gas and refineries. He runs a LinkedIn group called EPC Consultants Professionals, which he started in 2008, is having over 82,500 members with worldwide presence. Long story short, he is a vagabond and jack of all trades. Welcome Vinay Kumar for our sixth episode of The Next Door Engineers to Heroes. Thank you both of you for joining in today.
Engineering. I appreciate his contribution because I have been also following Ankur. But as you told me, I am the person who has been vagabond, moving around from one industry to other industry. Like in life, also I have been moving from one place to other place. Okay, so let us start.
Yes, let us start. I will start with a question. Vinay Kumar, can you start with this question? Uh, in 2008, you started this LinkedIn group called EPC Professionals and Consultants. When you started this group, what was the thought process? 2008 itself is like 12 years back. LinkedIn was still in the nascent stage. Uh, I mean, even now, LinkedIn is one of those social media websites which is not so popular in India like Facebook or Instagram because of its nature of social media. So, what was
Yes,
the thought process behind starting this group, and how did you grow the community to this level?
actually, yeah. In fact, let me answer a little bit on this. My group, which is very dear to me, in 2008 when I started it, the idea was EPC word was actually not for the EPC as a contractors. People think it about a contractors. It is for all engineers, engineering, procurement, and construction, and all the other services involved with the EPC business. So I have kept all that in mind, and I have nurtured the group like that. And as I told, I have my bread and butter have been is chemical engineering, basic process engineering. But I have been moving around, and we've been doing a job, accepting a job, or taking part in the jobs, all sort of engineering. So I have many times played a role of civil engineer, the architect, the HVAC engineer, electrical engineer, or mechanical engineer with the utilities and all that. So that was the picture in my mind. So I wanted to bring all thing together, and people who have been associated with this group since 2008 or maybe about 4 years, 5 years back, there was a different structure. So I was keeping the discussion portion very much limited to only technical discussions. Other job and uh, other promotional things were all having its different sections, which I was not touching it. But discussion I was controlling very strongly, so that only the discussions were going in. And technical discussions which I promoted were not only for chemical engineering, that's my process engineering. There are all sort of things, electrical, civil, which is the my have been my career or maybe my working pattern also. And people have liked it, and that is why it has been growing like steadily in this last 12 years. Initially, I know when you told 2008, it was very small. Even the limit was 20,000 members. And then after few, maybe I think 1 year or something, I was stuck at 20,000. Hundreds of people were requests were there, but no, LinkedIn was not allowing. Then suddenly they opened up, and after that, I think their limit was not there. Things have been growing, and recently there have been changed. They made it all mixed up. So I am finding difficult to contribute on the discussion part of it, because everything becomes so much mixed up. Control is not there with the owners. So yes, still, but people are there and people are buying it, and maybe they are getting benefited also. But the old patterns were much more strong on the technical knowledge sharing, and which I was pursuing like that.
Very insightful. From when did you hit this 20,000 numbers? When was this? And how long you waited?
That 20,000 was very early, maybe within maybe 10 to 8 months, because I was just pursuing people to join and all that with the technical knowledge and more in that. So 20,000 was very quick. But after that, maybe 6 months, they were not allowed to go. Hundreds of people were in the queue. I was not able to approve. But then the LinkedIn changed. I think the policy changed after maybe 6 months or a year something. Then suddenly I had about 500 people inside again. So yes, and after that, I think the limit of membership has not been there. So this growing like anything, and yes, I pursue people. I send requests also, and a lot of requests are coming to me also to join.
Wonderful. Uh, Moving on, Ankur, you have been contributing a lot in Chi Resources blog. It is a big community of chemical engineers, process engineers, and I think many other engineers. And you have a lot of millions of followers, if I'm not wrong. It's close to about 2 million viewers got. When did you start?
Yeah,
I mean, what was the thought process behind contributing something like this? Give us those initial journeys that you had with Chi Resources.
yeah. Actually, I became a member of CHE Resources in 2007, uh, and after becoming the member, I started putting questions on the forums because I felt I had a lot to learn. At that time, I was just working in Abu Dhabi in Tabudin, and I was doing a very unique kind of a project, which was developing standard practices, or you can say design engineering practices for ADMA OPCO, which is the offshore company of ADNOC, offshore oil exploration, ONG exploration company of ADNOC. And a very unique project was given, which was preparing standards for ADNOC. And that was unique in the sense that I was almost practically starting from scratch. My oil and gas experience was very limited to 2 years in 2007, and because of that, I had a lot of questions in my mind, and I went to the CHE forum and I started putting questions. That was the journey, start of the journey. That was the start of the journey for me for learning. I mean, the oil and gas business. I was in the polyester business earlier, so it was a big. For me, it was a big learning curve from a polyester business to oil and gas, and I had to go to some forums to satisfy my queries. That's how I started with CHE Resources. Ultimately, I was a person who was raising queries, and slowly I realized I could answer questions to other chemical engineers because I was doing my own study quite a lot. And slowly I started becoming a very active forum member, answering questions. And then one fine day, it struck me an idea because I had seen some veteran chemical engineers like Arthur Montemere, who was one of the administrators. He still is giving very long explanations about queries and all that, and I decided that I had to have a blog, and I started my blog with the title Ankush Chemical Engineering Blog. And the first blog entry, you can call them more as short articles rather than blog entries. So the first short article or blog entry was posted in August 2010, and the response was terrific. People liked it, and then I just kept on posting, and I haven't posted since a long time now, but till now I have posted 155 blog entries or articles on CHE Resources, with a combined viewership of all those blog entries exceeding 2 million. So it has been a great journey, a lot of appreciation, a lot of questions also, and very frankly speaking, when I have to write something, I have to do a lot of preparation for it. And that's very good because it helps me to revise my fundamentals again and again, and keeps me fresh in the industry, keeps my focus on my work. Professionally, it is very beneficial for me. People recognize me for that, and ultimately, the best part is that I simply enjoy it and I simply love it. So the passion is there for doing such a thing, and that's the reason I keep on doing it. And of late, my focus has shifted from CHE Resources to LinkedIn, where I have been doing a lot of posting and sharing with the young chemical engineering community, and I'm simply finding it exhilarating, enjoying it thoroughly. So this is the story of this blog thing and sharing of knowledge.
Good. I think I've been following Ankur also from a long time. Good show.
Yeah, that was very insightful, both of you. Moving on to the next question. Can you tell us some of the important skills that today's engineer should possess in order to stand on their own feet? Because it's all about being independent. Also, in this uncertain world, it is not like how you had about 30 years back a stable career. Now there's a lot of uncertainty. So engineers have to stand on their own feet. So with respect to that, what skills you think engineers should possess? Some of them come and tell me sales, is one of the best skills to have. Design is one of the skills that to have, or communication. Of course, communication is basic of all the skills that engineer should possess, or a domain skill. So, what according to you is the best skill to start with?
See, that's a good question because skill set is different for all the type of different engineers. As I told, I am a chemical engineer, but I have not limited myself to any that I am only will talk about chemical engineering. So in this forum also I will say, let me talk about general, because like chemical engineering, simulation is a very in things today. Everything is done by dynamic and static simulations. Oil and gas is totally dependent on simulation. So all these skills everybody knows and has to be there, and everybody has to master these. Even if you are not doing simulation, you should know simulation to understand the project which is going to be handled by you, maybe in a different as a position. But let me talk about the general, because I am talking about general. Maybe you are electrical engineer, maybe you are a communication engineer, or maybe HVAC engineer. These days, all the fields are based on the softwares. So software mastery is a must. People should try to master their field, whatever the important tools are available to them. Apart from that, as you told, communication is one. Communication is very important. You have to communicate, and dealing with the people is a very, I will call it, negotiation skills. Negotiation skills not only important for because I have been handled the projects also, I have handled the procurement also, I have handled the follow-up. So negotiation skill is not only negotiating a contract. Negotiating skill is how to make a win-win situation with your team, with your people you are dealing, maybe your client, maybe your vendor. So negotiation skill, how to talk full and get the things out so that a win-win situation is achieved. That is very important. Rest is most important, which I found since last 2008, is the networking. You should I always say people, please go for networking. LinkedIn, I don't say it is a very good platform, but I have been using it and it has been successfully. I have used it to develop this much networking, and I always suggest in my group also, people should expose themselves by answering, commenting, asking questions. And if you don't do anything, at least you if you seen some post, if you like it hits you at the right point, then you comment it. But if you say, okay, it's good, you just like it. Like doesn't mean it's you're very much appreciating it. Like only gives the exposure to you. So this is how I feel. Apart from the skills, networking is very important in this era of, I will say, artificial intelligence and other things. Okay.
Yeah, I have a somewhat divergent view on this about. So can I?
Please go on.
Point of view. See, in fact, I had told you even yesterday that I like to be well prepared for, and for some of the things which you wanted me to discuss. So I had written on some points, and I would like to elaborate on it. See, the question from your side was that how often you upgrade your skills, and is it voluntary or based upon the demand of your demand you generate from the projects. That was one of the questions you had said that people would like to know the answer of. So my viewpoint on this, that if upgrading skills means doing online certificates, I haven't done any, and I don't believe in collecting any medals and pinning them on my chest. But again, this is a personal opinion. I don't have uh, anything against people who want to do online certificates or learn online, doing some online work. Because I believe in that, in the adage that this is different strokes for different folks. I'm mostly a self-taught man. I'm an avid reader of technical literature and have the passion and perseverance to pursue any subject or topic I feel that helps in development. In today's engineering environment, a lot of focus is there on learning professional software. That's fine. I mean, I have no issues with that. But the software, but the software development is so skewed in this point of time. Really, if you, I have actually put a article on LinkedIn saying that process simulation software, don't be a data entry operator. You know what engineers are doing these days? They have become data entry operators because they are doing learning the software from a mechanical point of view, like doing data entry, without understanding the basics and skills behind what is going on. That's why I have developed my own style of doing engineering, like doing calculations on my own on using Excel as a tool, where I write down all the equations, I write down explanations and all that. Because many times I've seen, I mean, my article is very, very clear on how engineers have become tied to software. Any software is only as intelligent as you are. It cannot be more intelligent. And for any software, it is always true that if you put in garbage, you will get out garbage. So just learning software because you want to learn it and you want to pin it on your CV and say that you know this software, it doesn't really help. I have taken dozens of interviews and I have found people writing fudging in their CV knowing about some software. And when I said that let's talk about what you have learned in the software. For example, just to give you an example, what happened was we were discussing Aspen ISIS, and I said, let's do a modeling of a water pipeline on Aspen ISIS. So what property package will you use? And he says, person says we'll use Ping Robinson. And I said, why? You're modeling water. Do you need to do Ping Robinson for water modeling? You're modeling a water pipe. And I said, do you know there is a property package called ASME Steam on Aspen ISIS? And he looked at me as if I was doing something. I was telling him something very new. It was a revelation for him. So software learning blindly, I'm sorry, it doesn't really help. It can be, you cannot take people who know whose fundamentals are very good for a ride just because you have written in your CV that you know this particular software. You will be caught. And most of the engineers I find they are fudging their CVs, writing things which they don't know. And I normally don't take interviews without putting the CV in front of me. I will exactly go as per the CV and I will ask questions related to the CV. And then when they get caught, no sir, I had learned this a little bit, this and that. I said, don't try to fudge your CV. Don't bluff. People will catch you. There's nothing wrong in not knowing something. Even I don't know everything. Learning is the attitude should be there. So that's what I look in engineers when I am trying to hire someone. I look at the attitude rather than the amount of knowledge he has. But probably he hasn't had the experience to have gathered that kind of knowledge. But when people start bluffing, then it is very, very painful. And I advise all the youngsters who are listening, all people who are listening to me, don't fudge your CVs. Be honest in what you know and what you don't know. Not knowing is not a crime. Having the right is the one which should be driving you, rather than knowing everything. This is not the right attitude, and that's what I tell all engineers: have the attitude. The knowledge will come automatically. So this is what I just want to tell you on this skill part. Thank you, Rohit, for listening to me patiently.
No, that was very insightful. Garbage in, garbage out was a right analogy for software that are being used.
Yeah, it is. It's a very well-known adage for
what goes
software.
behind the software development. We all are hooked onto the software, feeding in something and getting out software. Moving on to the next question from the young. This is all about. We would like to know more about standing on our own feet, being in the freelancing industry and all. Vinay, young Vinay, say 30 years older Vinay, would you consider taking freelancing as a career today?
Truly speaking, when you say 30 years back, I was in India only.
No, but not 30 years back. You were.
Oh yeah, today's people.
Yeah, you were 30 years today. 30 years old today.
Yeah,
You
okay.
had considered.
So fine. Okay, so I will answer it that way. For the young people who are in 30s, maybe with a 10 years or maybe less than 10 year experience, yes, freelancing can be an option. Let me define first, because all the people who want to get engaged themselves in service or industry, there are maybe different mode of getting engaged. One is the job. Job is you are 9 to 6 employee with if you are in engineering, all that, you don't have any overtime, you are almost 24/7 employment. So that is the employment. Second is generally people take trend is some companies take it as a consultant or maybe a contract, but again that is a full-time job, 9 to 5. In that case, only your salary you are getting in a lump sum, which is you have to take care of your taxation and other as a contract person. Third thing is what you call self-employed or freelancer. Self-employed or freelancer, to my understanding, is people who are free to work different projects for different clients at the same time. This is my definition, maybe which I have learned by maybe by my experience. But people at the age of 30 may not be possible to go for this type of a thing. I will suggest they should go with a pool of engineers, maybe like if you are a process engineer people, or maybe you are electrical engineers, or a pool of civil engineers. They can pull together and form a small group to take the project by project, maybe because otherwise independent freelancer definition, which I told, a person working independently for different projects for different clients, may not be feasible at the age of 30. You can do that only when you grow up a little bit more experience and all that. You can spend less time and earn more. That is my answer.
What, according to you, if you were 30 years old today, you have the power of traveling back in time. I mean, it is not power of traveling back in time.
No, I get your point. See,
power of getting younger.
See, if I was 30 years old today, I would have probably not worked in any company. I would have gone straight into freelancing. See, this is a digital world, The kind of connectivity, overcoming all kinds of geographical barriers. It was something which we could never even dream of, maybe 30 years back or 20 years back. You're just connected. The airwaves are there everywhere. I can probably instantaneously connect with anybody in any part of the globe. So I actually think that probably if I could take back time and become young again, I would probably do that and just not have a job just do freelancing. Because, and of course, one more thing related to freelancing is the passion. And see, one of the biggest problems which we face in India is that we have too many generalists. You know why? That is one of the reasons that, it's like, everybody is trying to do everything, and then it becomes a mess. Because if I am not a subject matter expert, I will probably try to dabble into something which I have half knowledge, half baked knowledge. I'll make a mess of it, and ultimately I will create something which is not of quality. And if somebody who is very quality conscious, who is looking for something top of the line, he is going to be very unhappy, extremely unhappy, seeing that kind of work. So I would prefer that let's be a subject matter expert. Do you know one of the most successful freelancers in India is a gentleman named Mr. Rajiv Mukherjee. He is a heat transfer specialist. His order book is full. At least before the pandemic, his order book was full for more than 2 years. He is a panelist on HTRI software. He uses software. He is part of the development of the software. He is expert subject matter specialist. He designs for ASME section. What is that for nuclear? For the nuclear section which is applicable. He does it. Heat exchanger design for Nuclear Power Corporation and Bhabha Atomic Research. That's a totally different mechanical code from your normal ASME section 8 division 1 and division 2. So he is a role model for being a freelancer, and he is a role model not because he knows everything or he is a generalist. He is a role model because he is a specialist. He knows in and out of any heat exchanger. That's what I say that, and this is a Western mindset. You have subject matter specialists. You have people who know a subject so thoroughly that if you wake them up from their sleep, they will give you an answer. What India has is a bigger problem, that we have some people who dabble into everything, and I include myself. I am no exception. I also am more or less inclined to be trying to dabble into everything, and ultimately I don't have all the answers, but I try to come up with the answers because the Indian mindset is that you can never say no. And I have a very beautiful article on LinkedIn related to this mindset of Indians or of this subcontinent, where why we can't say no. What is our problem in saying no, and why Westerners are able to say, no, I don't know, please don't ask me. Because that's a very fair attitude. You are not supposed to know everything. You are free to tell that I don't know this, but in the Indian context, if you say I don't know, people take offense, which is not right. There are some things we are supposed to learn from the West, and this is one of that. So, please.
Follow-on question to this. You advocate freelancing. Vinay is having a different opinion on this. What, according to you?
Passion has to be there for freelancing. And are you ready to accept the pitfalls that there will be swings in the business, there will be ups and downs, there will be a time when you will have good business and there will be times when you will be down in the dumps with no business? Do you have that kind of attitude to be work free or not making a living, not earning money? Do you have that fortitude to bear this kind of thing? If you don't have that fortitude, you are not cut out for freelancing. If you are looking for a steady monthly income, that I must get 1 lakh rupees or 50,000 rupees a month every month, then probably you are not cut out for freelancing. Because freelancing,
You answered one of the questions which was there in my mind.
You are looking for a steady income. You are not willing to bear any losses. You are not willing to take a lean period in its stride, then sorry, you don't cut out. You are not cut out for being a freelancer. And at an older age, when I know I am financially secure, I can probably do better in this matter, because I don't know. I'm not looking for my bread and butter with freelancing just because I am making some money from freelancing. If it comes, good. If it doesn't, really doesn't bother me. So that's what are the pitfalls about freelancing.
That was very candid, indeed. Vinay, now since you said at the age of 30, no, I wouldn't prefer freelancing. I would rather collaborate with different categories of engineers. Go as a group instead of going as an individual. Would you, say this to your prodigy, your son or your daughter, or no, to any of your students to do this? To take up this kind of an idea.
Yeah, in fact, Ankur has also told, at this age of 30 years, financial independency will never come to anybody. And at the age of 30, when you have already had only about 10 years of experience, you will never get any expertise which you can call be SME. I have been SME, but I have been called SME only in the last 5 to 10 years of my career, which is about 40 years. So in 10 years or 15 years, you are getting called as SME is a very thing which you are having very positive attitude about yourself. Otherwise, the industry will like to have some results, will like to have some projects to be executed, because it doesn't matter whatever knowledge you are having, but if you don't have anything in your plate to show the client that this is what I have done, or this is what we have achieved. We have is a group like something that many people are making a process engineering group, people are making electrical engineering group, people are making civil engineering group, and architects are working together. So that sort of initial, maybe I'm not saying you got employment, because these are also freelancing, but as a group you offer your services. Some people may have some maybe expertise, some other may be having other expertise. So this type of working for people with a 10 to 15 year experience will be good. Once you cross 20, 25, then of course freelancing as a SME, as a SME is a more, I will say it is more feasible, as Ankur has already said. In that stage, you will be not looking for a bread and butter, but you will be looking for financial things are already secured, your liabilities are settled. So that time you can become a freelancer, or you can lead the people and all that. So that is my experience. I am telling you my experience. And maybe people have a different opinion about it, so that they can think starting. And let me tell you very much again for this one thing, we both, Ankur and me, we are people from hardcore engineering, which we call brick and mortar. This is not true for the software people who are in the web development, software development and IT sector. Those engineers are also part of my group in the LinkedIn and all that. I encourage them also. I have been actively encouraging the discussion on SAP also, that is which some people call SAP. My son is also in SAP consultant. So those groups are different. We both, I think, have from the different, I will say, era where the engineering, process engineering, civil engineering, they were more important, and they were in there becoming a SME at that time was very difficult. Maybe today also it is the same. That is my opinion.
Rohit, there is also one divergent view of opinion that things are changing now rapidly. You know, people who used to be scared, youngsters used to be scared about taking up freelance assignments. Nowadays, it is more and more youngsters are getting encouraged to take up freelance work or work independently. You know, Uh, One another aspect is that it also depends on the business environment of the place where you are. You know, if the government encourages, if the infrastructure is there, more and more people will be encouraged to take up this kind of freelancing work. But one of the unfortunate things which in India is existing is that there are no rules. See, I am not a, I don't say that everything should be confined in rules and regulations, but there have to be some rules and regulations. For example, man-hour rates, you know, it is totally unregulated. Anybody can quote anything. Somebody may quote 200, another person may quote 1,000 rupees. There is no structure at all. I mean, for a given kind of work, A can quote 200 rupees per hour and B can quote 800 and the C may quote 1500 rupees per man hour. There is nothing like a structure. So there has to be some kind of regulation or structure where I can say, oh gosh, I have to work within this range. So if I know there is some regulation, industrial, it's something similar to real estate, which was not regulated. You know, RERA has been recently introduced. You are aware of that, Rohit, I believe.
I know.
RERA
let
is now
let me
regulated.
let me interrupt you.
RERA is
Let us
now
not
regulated.
because regulating freelancing, I don't think may be feasible. Maybe another 20-30 years to come. So let us not go into detail. What only freelancing regulation? I am telling you, as you are saying, some people are quoting different.
Yeah,
There are a lot of layers of
one minute,
maybe.
sir. 1 minute, sir. There is a question. I just want to see. He is asking whether there is one gentleman, Mr. Kamran, is asking that whether there are some international regulations related to regulating these
I
man
don't
hours and
know.
all that. See, there are some written guide, not in India, but if you go to the Western countries, there are some regulations or guidelines available for everything. I am giving you an example. My brother-in-law is doing real estate business in Canada, and he had to give an exam. He is a certified real estate broker, and he has to work within a certain set of guidelines created by the real estate agency in Canada. So there are guidelines and regulations available in the West for almost everything, not only for, I mean, even for engineering. I mean, in engineering in US, one cannot say I will charge you $5 and the other says I'll charge you $100 for the same, because then it will be the other person can say that okay, you are breaching all rules and regulations. $5 was not the rate; it is $100. So in India, I understand it is a big problem, but in the West, things are very well regulated. You work within certain ranges. I know that, and Mr. Kamran, I believe your question is answered. So I will again ask Mr. Vinay Kumar to continue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or Vinay, if you would like to answer this question, uh, uh, what radical change in India should happen? We are all stereotyping mindset. If somebody is into freelancing, we often treat that person as an unemployed person. I personally might not do it, or you might not do it, or uncle. But we have this mindset. Parents don't let their children do this kind of things. They want their children to be secured in an MNC company. So, what radical change in India should come to disrupt this industry, and for people, for parents, or for the society to accept this as a full-time job, at least a job, if not a full-time job?
Yeah, let me tell you again, because I started with that job and that how the method you are paid. As a full-time job, maybe a part-time job, or some people call full-time job with a moonlight working and all that. Those things are there, and freelancing is a part of it. I have never myself. I have been, as I've told, I am vagabond. I have changed so many jobs from big company to small companies, and I have never felt ashamed that I am not employed. Not unemployment is not a question. I have always said I have either been busy with something, maybe if not employment, not a project with a different knowledge, skill, maybe in enhancing my own way. But freelancing, but I have used several times, and I have never said I used to call it consultant. I am a consultant now. So that is another way of saying that you are a freelancing, because consultant is also sort of a more respectable word for the Indian context. So you can always call yourself consultant, and I have been always calling like that I am available. This once, as soon as you are changing or something, you are looking for a change, putting in your CV that you are freelancing or you are a consultant, at least start giving exposure to the industry that you are available. So this mindset I never had, that freelancing or consultant means unemployment. And unemployment word is different. So people have to think that consultant and freelancer need not to work maybe 12 months in a year. They can work 8 months, 6 months, or whatever, depending upon their requirements and all that, and then they will enjoy the life, or maybe they pursue the other things in their life. So this thing has to change. And yes, it is coming, because a lot of people now realize that earlier the jobs of government, then jobs of MNCs, they were all preferred. But now people know there are so many avenues are there. Some are good, some are bad, some are high earning, some are low earning. But these are the way of life. So people are changing, people are understanding. So I will suggest to all youngsters, all people are there, as soon as you are at the verge of leaving a job or a change, please announce it by calling yourself a freelancer or a consultant. That way, at least the industry knows, people who know you, they will understand that now you are available for work. That is my attitude, have been since very beginning, maybe last 30 years I will say, because earlier about 10 years I was having a stable job and all that. But after that I have been changing project to project, and I have been always giving a signal to other people that I am available. That is and things are changing, I will say.
Because what, according to you, this radical change?
According to me,
you have to understand. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So our radical change, what is required in India is that the smaller, there's a dilemma in India. The big companies can afford to go to big consultants, okay, because they have the money. There have been, in the past, there have been some big companies who have hired consultants which they didn't find satisfactory, and they had some poor experiences, and they decided enough is enough. We have the money to spend. We can go to big consultants and we can hire the best expertise. Now, the smaller companies, that is one part. The bigger companies say, I have the money, I will buy something which is the best. Now, looking at the smaller organizations are looking for these kind of people. But again, they are not looking from a qualitative viewpoint. What they are looking is that, okay, how much less money this guy is going to charge from me, and I'll hire that guy, without knowing his real competence level, whether he can deliver the goods. So these smaller companies, they end up hiring on a fee basis or on a manner or rate basis rather than the person's competence, and then they end up in trouble because they get something which is not up to the mark. So the level of confidence is, it's a fault between, basically a fault of trust. The kind of trust the consultant or the freelancer he has to create with his client, or the client has to have that kind of faith or trust in the consultant or freelancer. That kind of environment is still missing in this country. Once that kind of change comes, when there is a faith or trust factor built between the consultant or freelancer and the client, then only things will change. Till now, unfortunately, that has not been the case. things are changing, but it is still taking a lot of time, and ultimately that environment of connectivity, trust and faith is the only thing which is going to make a difference. I just want to give
Yes.
you an example, for 1 minute, just to continue for a minute. I was in Bechtel in Saudi, and one gentleman from Houston, Bechtel was called because it was a specialized boiler related job. And when he came, he was an Indian but settled in America. When he came, I asked him that how much are you engaged? He says, I am only engaged 6 months in a year. By 6 months, I travel around attending seminars and at the company's expense. And I said, wow. He says, please understand the fact that my man-hour rate is 4 times your man-hour rate. So I am for the company, what you earn in 1 year, I earn it in 3 months. So you understand what kind of, so I am a subject matter expert. Nobody can beat me in my subject. I am the ultimate expert. So that also matters a lot. Being a subject matter expert means a lot in the Western world, and that's why they are the advanced countries. They are not third world countries. India, where everyone has to be a generalist, is still a third world country. Let's accept it as a fact. This is what I want to tell you. You need to have subject matter experts. You cannot dabble. You can't be a jack of all. It doesn't work really. If you want to grow, you have to have subject matter experts. That is what I wanted to tell. Thank you.
You had something to add to.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to add it here, as Ankur has raised this point of how the things are done in the industry. A big client, he goes for a big company, and then big company, I have heard from a small company which has only a dozen or 2 dozen of people, to a company like Petrofac and all that, which are the biggest in the industry. I have seen everybody has got manpower is always hired and fired. Are you sure? If I am correct, everybody will appreciate this word, hired and fired. Small company, big company, all they employ the people, and no, it has been there, sir. I got about 30 years, I can quote it. So it has been like that. As the requirement comes, the projects come, the people look for the people and they take it. And that is how this SME and other word has started coming into pictures in the last about 15 years. Other than before the 15 years back, even the Western world doesn't have this SME or 30 years big. I have seen anybody called SME or something like that. So they hire people, and that time this designation comes, he is SME, he is a project engineer, something like that. So this is the idea. Earlier people used to be in a company, that was maybe about 30 years back. That time the projects were smaller, requirements were less, companies were hiring people and keeping them for some time. But last 10 years, last maybe 15 years, hired and fired people policies is putting people on the market, and then people go for the whatever you call it, SMEs and all that. They call it their SME and they get hired only for that purpose. That is the idea. That is my view on the SMEs part. I have been also SME and have been hired only for the specific project, specific periods.
This has been very interesting, right? Conversation, hiring is word, hiring and firing. Moving on.
Hiring and firing, I just want to add one thing is that this has come to India in the last 10-15 years only.
Yeah, it has come.
Tata's people used to think like a government job. I have family, my father's friends and all. My father was a government servant. He retired from government service, working for almost 40 years, 35 years. And there were some of his friends who were working with companies like Tata's and Godrej. They also started their career there and ended their career 35, 40 years working there without any problems. So this is only a recent phenomenon in India, but it has been there in the West since long.
Yeah.
And just to tell you one thing, Westerners don't care whether they are fired. I have written an article on that. One of the reasons is they are not scared that they will be on the streets. They have social security. Nobody will go hungry or without shelter. In India, that is not the case. So everybody is scared. A youngster, if he loses his job, his bread and butter goes. In the US, it doesn't happen. And there is another aspect to it which I have written. This is based on the article I had written on LinkedIn. So I told this friend of this colleague of mine who is an American, and I said that Indians in America also are very scared of losing their jobs. He said, I don't know why, what is the reason? I said, you know what, Indians are very class conscious and very, very prestige, for them prestige matters a lot. And losing a job and being on social security is like being, pariah in the society or being outcast in the society. So no Indian wants to be on social security. So this guy says, oh, we Westerners, we Goras, we don't mind that. We can live on social security. So just to give you a background on what actually happened as a conversation between me and an American gentleman, very well known when I was in Saudi. Thank you.
The hard stop here. I'm sorry for that. We have got some questions to take from the audience, and we will have this conversation maybe in 10 minutes from now. Quick.
Yeah, sure.
Swapnil Sharma has got a question here. Swapnil, you want to ask this question by yourself? Are you there with us? Okay, I will ask on his behalf. The first question that he had asked was, what is the right number of experience required to be in freelancing? I think this has already been answered by both of you. 30 years, is not as per Vinay, and Ankur says this is the right time. 30 years, this is the right time. So it depends on the person to person. Whenever he wants to pursue it as a freelancing career, he can.
It's your mindset, basically your own personal mindset.
Yes,
that's right. That's right.
I mean, if I have to add here, there should not be any societal pressure to this. Parents and society has to admit that this is a career to take up. This is not an unemployed opportunity. I mean, a person who is unemployed who is doing it, but this is a full-time opportunity. And another one is, as a budding engineer, what skills and knowledge or field experience should we attain? I think we have already answered this question. Technical skills and simulation and software skills, negotiation skills from Vinay. I mean, both of you have answered this question. I think we'll move to the next one. Syed questions. Yeah, I think we have answered all of them. This is something which is interesting from Vishwas Desai. Vishwas, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay. This question of yours was about guidelines on how to code for a fixed term. Can you elaborate about this question?
Yes, I had two questions. Any specific skills required for procurement and contracts position? And second is, how do you quote some? I want to give a quotation for a fixed term or a fixed project freelancing assignment. What are the different methodologies where I have to quote for the freelancing assignment?
Ankur, would you take this question?
Yeah. You can do it on a lump sum basis depending on the. And that is from the Indian context, most of the consultants, small consultants, I'm basically saying, or even big consultants are quoting on a lump sum basis. So you quantify the work, you multiply it with a figure or a man-hour rate or whatever you feel is the right man-hour rate, and then you come out with a lump sum number and you quote that lump sum. But along with that, you also mention all the kind of deliverables and the scope of work which you envisage is the correct scope of work. So basically, from the Indian context, it is a lump sum. Mostly it is lump sum. In certain exceptions, it may be based on man hours if it is a very small job. For example, if you know it is probably just about 40 or 50 man hours, then multiply it with the rate and say, okay, I'm going to charge you 400 rupees or 500 rupees or 600 rupees an hour, and it's 30,000 rupees. 600 into 50 is 30,000 rupees. So that is the methodology of charging. This is basically, I'm talking from an engineering point of view, doing engineering work, not from any field services or because field services rates are totally different from engineering rates. They are on a manner or day rate basis depending on the kind of work which you are going to do. For example, if a process engineer is going to be on the field for commissioning, his rate may be 5,000 rupees or 8,000 rupees per day. As of chairman or facilitator, for 3 days of ASOP may charge about 10,000 per day or 12,000 per day for say around 40 or 50,000 for 3 or 4 days, which is 3 day ASOP. So there are different rates or different methodologies for quoting for any kind of freelance work or a consultant work. And since unfortunately, as I said, that since there is no regulation on how it is to be done, people have been doing all kinds of things, like quoting from abysmally low rates of 300 rupees to more than 1500 rupees. So there is no fixed methodology, and which is the unfortunate part. So that is the answer to your question, Vishwas.
Thank you, Ankar. Vishwas, I think that has answered your question. If you want in detail answer to your question, then I will drop email IDs of Ankur and Vinay. I will send out their email address. You can get in touch with them through their email. Before we close out, Vinay, have you got any closing comments and any closing tips for
Close means let me say thank you to you and Ankur also joining this discussions. And as I told, I am available on LinkedIn. Any help, any query, anything you can ask either personally to with me. Technical things I try to solve it out or answer it, or if I am not able to, I try to get the help of somebody in the group who will surely answer it. And my group has been always available for helping in all the fields, I will say, because this is a pool of different engineers, procurement, construction, and even HR and all people involved with the industry. So all are welcome to approach me there or through my group or through my personal contact. LinkedIn is the best, I will say.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is true. I think Syed Kamran has some question. Can you just?
Yeah. This is my question is related to entrepreneurship. Syed, can you phrase it by yourself? What question are you trying to ask here?
Yes, I actually want to know what are the gateways. Is there any group? How we can find any work? We know from your discussion, I have been hearing that there are many ways to how we can do a contract for freelancing. But how we can go and find any work?
Okay, so let me answer this.
Please.
Yeah, please.
Finding work for maybe personal freelance or starting a project or anything like this in this industry is simply taking risk, or that is the entrepreneurship. I have seen in my personal life, a person was not able to decide, in spite of his MBA from Ahmedabad and all that, the project should go ahead or not. Then he is told by one of the senior, who was only a marketing man, nothing, no technical knowledge, I will say. He said to him, now is enough. You already spent so much time, you got so much study, let us go ahead. Because he was basically a marketing man for the company. He says, okay, let us go ahead. We'll do that. And that is how the risk was taken by somebody who was not involved in the companies and hire, but he was a sort of a employee. But of course, he was an insider, so that he has given the signal to go ahead, and that project has gone ahead. Same thing for freelancing also. Risk taking has to be there. You have to be prepared for the, as I told, freelance people need not to work for maybe 12 months in a year. So you can always cushion up your requirements, you can cushion up your savings, and so that you can work with that. And risk taking abilities has to be there. Then how to get work? That depends upon the networking. That depends upon the how you approach the, we call it in salesman, person who has got money, who got authority, and then he has take decision power to take the decision. So that is the man. So that you approach that fellow, and then you got some contacts, surely you can get some job. Otherwise, if you don't have the right person or right marketing, then you will, in the freelancer, you will not be able to get the job. That is very sure. That is my views on the entrepreneurship. Okay.
Yeah, just to tell you, Syed, you have to create your image. You have to create your profile. You have to create a larger than life sometimes profile, which says that you are one person who can be depended on to do some kind of work. So that image creation. See, this is a digital world. Unless people know you, unless you have an image, unless you have a profile, unless people know you either through social media or in any other way, you have to be a prominent face. People should know who Syed Tahrim is, then things will start happening. You know, one of the advantages of having a profile on social media or interacting through all what I am doing on LinkedIn and other social media is that I am known across engineering, chemical engineering circles, not only in India, but even overseas also. So visibility, in very short, in a nutshell, you have to have visibility, and that visibility, you are the ones who can develop your own visibility. Nobody else can. So you have to work on that. That's my.
I would like to add those two are definitely networking and creating your visibility are definitely valid points. Third thing is that there are a lot of marketplaces you would like to check out them. GoHype is of course one of them. These kind of marketplaces help connect freelancers or consultants like Vinay or Ankur to SMEs. So SMEs also also have a lot of requirements. They don't know the place where to post the requirement. So marketplaces like GoHype are helping bridge the gap between specialists and SMEs. So with this, I would like to close this episode. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Ankur and Vinay, for joining in on our 6th episode of the Next Door Engineers Studios. We will have more of this.
Thank you.
And we will be in touch continuously. And thank you once again.
Thank you, Rohit. It was a pleasure, and we hope to have many more interactive sessions again with you and GoHype. Thank you very much.